Today we're going to be talking about some practical tools to manage and control your anger. Hi everyone. We often think about anger as a negative and destructive emotion. However, anger is actually a very important and valuable emotion because it serves as a sign that something's wrong or something wrong is happening. And anger activates you to address the situation and to deal with whatever the problem is. So, anger in and of itself isn't a problem, but it's the expression of anger. It's how the anger comes out that can be problematic. So what we're going to be talking about in today's video are ways that you can better manage and control anger to minimize the negative consequences and maximize the benefits of anger. But before we get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about managing your anger. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and as I've explained in a previous video, anger can be a really useful and positive emotion, as long as it's expressed in constructive ways. Anger doesn't have to be about conflict, violence, or negativity, but too often the case, people can lose control of their anger, and it causes them to lash out in negative ways that leads to all sorts of problems for the person, but also for other people around them or in their orbit. So, how do you control anger? What are the components of effective anger management? Well, the first step is to recognize when you're feeling angry and to be more aware of the common triggers that contribute to you feeling angry. It's a lot easier to control your anger when you catch it earlier on rather than trying to manage it when you're in a rage state. So, what are some of the things you can do to recognize triggers and early warning signs that you're starting to feel angry? Well, one thing you can do that can be helpful is to make a list of common triggers that cause your anger to flare up. So things like other people being late, or my kids leaving their shoes in the middle of the hallway, a work colleague who doesn't respond to emails, getting cut off in traffic, people talking loudly on their cell phone on the bus, being late for a meeting. Think about all of the things that tend to be those fuse lighters for my anger irritability. Now notice, some of these things may be avoidable, like being late for a meeting, while others of these things, like people talking loudly on the phone, are not. So for some of the ones that are avoidable, that you're aware of, you can make efforts to try and avoid those situations. So trying to avoid being late by sort of planning your time a little bit better. Whereas someone talking loudly on the bus, you don't really have any opportunity to avoid or control that situation. So this list of trigger situations, what it can do is to keep at the forefront of your mind the most common situations that cause you to feel angry. And so when you find yourself in those situations, or when you can recognize or plan ahead to being in those situations, you're more likely to be on the lookout for signs that you're getting angry. Now, in addition to this list of common trigger situations, you can also make another list of early warning signs that you're becoming angry. Remember, it's much easier to manage anger when you're not in a high anger state. So if you can identify it earlier on and stop it, that can be really helpful. Now, your physical reactions can be an important alarm bell that helps you recognize your anger earlier on, and your physical reactions can give you a better chance to address the situation before your anger gets out of control. So, being aware of some of the common physical sensations that you experience when you're angry can be really important. So, things like increased muscle tension, or clenching your fists, or clenching your jaw, grinding your teeth, when you notice your heart's racing, or you have chest tightness, or you feel sort of hot or sweaty, or you just get a sense of physical physical aggravation. So when you notice these physical sensations happening, it's a sign to you that you're getting angry. A good example of this was in the Marvel movie The Hulk, in which Edward Norton is playing Bruce Banner, and he's the Hulk. He has a heart rate monitor that he wears, and his heart rate monitor helps inform him and lets him know when he's starting to get worked up and angry, so he can try to calm himself down before he becomes the Hulk. So it's the same sort of idea without the Hulk part, but it's the same sort of idea of using your physical sensations, your physiological responses as a cue to when you're getting angry. So you've identified your most common trigger situations, and you've noticed your early warning signs that you're starting to feel angry. What do you do now? Once you start noticing you're starting to feel angry, you can address that anger with a variety of tools, including behavioral tools, thinking tools, and emotional management tools. So in terms of the behavior tools, there's a few things that you can do. And the first one seems a little bit obvious, but I think it's an important one to point out. First thing you can do when you start to notice that you're feeling angry is to remove yourself from the situation, to allow yourself to calm down. It's almost like giving yourself a timeout. What this does is it gets you out of the trigger situation, gives you an opportunity to calm down, and allows you some time to think through the situation rather than just reacting to it. So if you notice you're starting to get angry during an argument with your spouse, one of the best things you can do is step away from the situation, go for a walk, and resume the discussion when you've calmed down a bit. Now, if you can't remove yourself from the situation, another thing you can try is to try to distract yourself from what's making you so angry. So while this distraction isn't really a physical timeout of removing yourself from the situation, it's almost like a mental timeout to take your mind off of what is causing you to feel so angry. Get your mind off of thinking about that anger-provoking incident or situation. So suppose you're stuck in traffic and you notice yourself getting worked up because you hate being stuck in traffic. Well, one of the things you can do is turn on the radio and sing along to a song that's playing on the radio. Or you can listen to a podcast and really think about what they're talking about on the podcast. You can count the number of pedestrians that you see out on the sidewalk. Anything to get your mind sort of shifted towards thinking about something else. Now, if your anger is being caused by a problem situation, a good approach for anger management in that case is to engage in problem solving to address the problem that's making you angry. Because if you're able to solve the problem that's triggering your anger, then you're not going to feel angry anymore. Problem solving allows you to direct the activation that's being caused by the anger to actually addressing the problem. So you're not taking out your anger on the people around you, but you're using the anger to motivate you to engage in problem solving and address the problem that's causing the anger. Now, I've done a video on practical problem solving skills. If you're wanting to learn more about that, about this topic and ways of better problem solving, I'd encourage you to take a look at that video. Now, One aspect of problem solving can be to be more assertive, especially in situations where the problem involves interpersonal conflict or difficulties with another person. The thing is, people often confuse assertiveness with aggressiveness. Now, aggressiveness, that's an unhelpful expression of anger. That can lead to more conflict or problems with people. However, being assertive with people involves respecting them, respecting yourself, communicating how you're feeling, showing understanding, and trying to work collaboratively with the other person to try and address the situation. Assertiveness is much different than aggressiveness. And if you're wanting to learn more about assertiveness and some of the differences between assertiveness and aggressiveness, I've done some videos on those topics, which I'll link to above, and I encourage you to take a look at those if you're interested in learning more. So those are all behavioral approaches to managing anger. What about some thinking tools? What about thinking tools that you can use to change how you view the anger-provoking situation? Well, the first thing you can do is to recognize some of the anger-provoking thoughts that you're actually having in the situation. Things like, this is so unfair, or I hate this guy, or I'm going to make them pay for this. Well, think about it. If you're thinking those types of things, what's that likely to do to your anger? It's probably working you up. It's probably making, those types of thoughts are probably making the anger more intense. So the idea is to take a step back once you notice yourself having these types of sort of anger-provoking or anger-inspiring thoughts, and to try and think about the situation more realistically. Examine the evidence. What's the evidence that supports my angry views of this situation? Yes, my friend is late for lunch, but what's the evidence that my friend always treats me like garbage? What's the evidence that my friend doesn't value me? I might be having those thoughts, but what's the evidence to support them? Because what this can do is it can give me an opportunity to look for alternative explanations or alternative interpretations of the situation. Can I think about this situation any differently? Are there any other explanations for why my friend is late rather than them having a complete disregard and disrespect for me? Well, maybe they got stuck in traffic or got held up at work outside of their control. It's a much different way of thinking about it, and that's much less likely to lead to me getting really worked up and more angry. Is there evidence to support different ways of thinking about this situation? Has my friend ever been respectful to me? Have they ever showed me that they care about me or value me? If I can think about these other situations that have shown that my friend respects and cares about me, it can help diffuse some of those anger thoughts that I'm having. Another tool that you can use to change how you think about anger-provoking situations is empathy. Now, the thing with empathy is it's just really about thinking about another person's behavior in a different way. Thinking about maybe their behavior wasn't intended to hurt you. Oftentimes, the way a person behaves has nothing to do with us, but we tend to assume that what other people do does have to do with us. Like we're the center of the world, and people are constantly thinking about us when they do the things they do. When in fact, that's probably not the case at all. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe their behavior is just a reflection on how they're doing that day and how they're coping with things going on in their life. So the notion of empathy takes me out of my situation and gets me to try to think about how the the situation may feel like for the other person, what the other person might be going through. And what this can do is often diffuse some of the anger that we feel in these types of situations when we're perceiving that the person's behaving some way because they're reacting to us. So finally, let's talk about some emotion management tools. Now, these are approaches to try and manage the experience of the anger emotion itself. Now, one of the most common emotion management tools that people use to try and regulate anger and irritability is relaxation. Because our bodies can be strongly affected and influenced by anger, as I mentioned earlier. Thing is, it's really difficult to be relaxed and angry at the same time. So if you can learn effective ways of relaxing yourself, what it can do is lower the overall physical arousal that you experience when you're feeling angry, and that you're experiencing that can lead to that boiling over and lead to the anger getting out of control. The relaxation can bring down that overall level of stress and tension and take more. It can take more to get you to that angry state. And there's lots of different things that people can do in terms of relaxation: slow diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, meditation, all sorts of things. Another way of regulating or managing the physical hyperarousal or physical arousal that results from being in an angry state is engaging in physical exercise, because physical exercise can help burn off some of the physical tension that happens when you're feeling angry. Now, another emotion regulation tool to manage anger is one that you may not have thought of before. And this tool is humor. It's really challenging to be angry when you're laughing. Yes, life can be extremely frustrating, and it can be extremely anger-provoking. But can be this way more so if you take all of the daily annoyances too seriously. By making an effort to see humor in those daily frustrations and annoyances, it can help diffuse some of the anger that you experience. And finally, anger can be a symptom of other underlying psychological difficulties like depression, anxiety, excessive worry, PTSD. So if the problematic anger is a result or symptom of these conditions, learning better ways of managing these psychological conditions can be critical in controlling anger. So in this case, in this type of situation, the goal isn't so much anger management, but rather addressing the underlying root cause of the anger. And so I've done lots of videos on tools to help manage these types of conditions. So if you're interested in learning more about skills and tools to manage depression, PTSD, generalized anxiety, I'd encourage you to take a look at some of the videos on my channel if you're interested in learning more about that. So that's it for anger management. I hope this gives you a better sense of some of the various ways you can better control problematic anger through things like earlier recognition of anger, changing the situation, changing how you think about the situation, and managing your emotional reactions better. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this, so please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you're interested in seeing more of my videos, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.